Welcome to this conversation with Scott Paich. He's a musician who's performed with Toto and Pink Floyd, and he's an entrepreneur. So a big problem that a lot of people have, I know a lot of YouTubers, so I kind of transfer all content that goes into my head towards the YouTube community, is figuring out, people wanting to figure out their story. They don't know exactly who they are. They don't know which passion to really hone in on. And something very funny that's fitting to this is I listened to an interview with you that you almost turned down the chance to play with Pink Floyd because you didn't think that they were a good fit for you with your musical style.
It wasn't bad. I just didn't know anything about it. It wasn't necessarily a good fit. I just didn't know. When I ended up playing on the record. I got called to do a session with Dave Gilmore. They called me up to come play on the record. So I went and played on the record, did the solo. But when I did it, I didn't really know much about the band at all. And then they called me a few days later to come join the band. And I was in the middle of some projects. And I said, well, Dave, let me think about it. So I called a friend of mine up because when he called me up, he said, we're going to go out on the road. We're going away for 2 years. So if somebody says to me, hey, pack your bags, you're going to be on the road for the next 2 years. That's a big decision, right? And I didn't know anything about Pink Floyd at the time. So I called a friend of mine. I'll never forget. It was sort of funny. So I called Danny. So I said, hey, I played on this record for this band called Pink Floyd. He said, oh, dude, you played on a Pink Floyd record? I said, yeah, it was great. I put some solos on and all that stuff. And I said, wow. And then I said, the guitar player, David Gilmore, called you. David Gilmore called you? I said, yeah, he called me up and he said, hey, we're going out on the road. We're going to do this thing. Would you join the band? And I said, well, Dave, let me think about it. Because I was in the middle of a big project. I was working on my own thing. And I didn't know when we go away for 2 years, big deal. So he said, dude, you have to do that gig. You must play with that band. And I said, wow. So I went to, I remember going to Tower Records that night and buying all the Pink Floyd records, coming home and listening to them. Because like I said, I didn't really know much about them. I remember I heard the name. Of course, I knew the name. And I knew a song, Have a Cigar. I think that was the one that I remembered, a Pink Floyd tune at the time. And so I listened to all this stuff and I ended up taking the gig. And boy, am I glad I did. It was a very smart move. Very smart move. Yes.
Indeed.
Very thankful. Because I learned so much from that gig. I mean, I learned a ton from Dave Gilmore, who's my music guru. He's the master of melody. He taught me it's not what you play, it's what you say, right? That's like such a critical piece. It's like, because one thing about Dave's playing, which is so fantastic, is everybody, whether you're a musician or somebody, you can follow his solos. They're beautiful melodies. And, it's like if you listen to Comfortably Numb and you don't hear if you don't sing the guitar solo, it's almost like they left the words out, right? They're such a part of it. His solos are such iconic parts of all the Pink Floyd records. So he really made me rethink about how do I play, how do I think about music and stuff. So I really changed my style a lot because of him. I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah. So it's just such a hard thing to know which opportunities to take and which passions to follow. Would you have anything to say into that for people who are
I think I love the idea of people saying follow their passion, right? I think that's great. But if I'm 5'4" and my passion is basketball, it's not really a good idea, right? So we have to be honest about our passions and also our abilities at some times of where we actually fit much. Now, it's wonderful. Again, if it's a hobby, then absolutely do go for because there's nothing more important than following your passion and feeling good about what you're doing. I follow mine every day. There's no question. Mine happens to be business and music. And I just love this whole kind of mashing it all together. That's one that I just think needs to be careful about, only because I've seen people follow their passions and it's led them to not necessarily a great place because they went all in at something that they weren't really geared for to actually do. You want to be at least realistic about what your things are when you're making those decisions, especially if it's part of your sort of what I'll call business model for your moving forward. Because there's no question, when you're passionate about something and you care about it, you get up every day, you want to go to work, you want to do it. So passion is a very, very, very important element, and I would never tell anybody not to follow it. I'm just, my suggestion is just you have to like understand what is the overall thing that you're trying to achieve, and whether it's a good fit. Now that makes me I'm a little scared even saying these things, because I don't want to stop anybody from thinking that. It's all about the ride. So if you're having a good ride, it doesn't matter what you do, right? You just have a good ride, right? That's all that matters.
It's like the whole finding your audience thing. It's, you can put just your story and your heart out there, but if it's not meeting any need and it's not what anyone's looking for,
Well, then what happens is then you get more frustrated, then it can make you unhappy, right? Because it sounds great. I'm doing what I really care about doing, but I'm not getting anywhere. And now I'm frustrated. And then it turns into something else, right? That's why I'm real big about, and when I say the ride, I really mean that. I mean, because here's the deal, and I say this in every interview because I think this is one of the most important things that anybody, or if I can pass this on to anybody, this is so critical. Bottom line is, the only thing real right now is you and me talking. Everything else is an illusion. Now, grasp that concept. What do you mean everything else is an illusion? Well, 2 minutes ago, you can't touch, you can't change, you have nothing, it's done. Whatever happened 2 minutes ago when we were on, it's over. 2 minutes from now, I can't touch either, really. It's really, the only thing is this present moment, and the only thing real is us talking. So this is reality. Everything else is mental stuff, right? So if we get all caught up on the end goal, like, okay, I'm going to start my business, I'm going to make millions of dollars, and this is the most important thing in my life, and I'm going to work, and then I start working towards it, and then the game changes, because that's part of the business, right? Maybe the model you were going after doesn't work or whatever. Now I start to suffer dramatically because I'm so invested in my mental dream of my goal that now I suffer, that's where all suffering comes from, is usually from this mental noise that we create based on thinking about the past and about the future and what if and all these things, when the bottom line is, right now, what am I feeling? Am I anxiety? Do I have any anxiety, tension, or fear? No, if I have any of that, I'm identified with a thought, because I'm here in reality. I'm talking to you on this phone. There's nothing wrong. Everything's fine in reality, right? So I always tend to try to keep in reality and realize that that's the ride. This is the piece that really matters. The rest of it's all noise. So, and what I'm saying, it doesn't mean there's not things you've got to think about, you've got to deal with. But when you realize you can stay present enough to realize what's actually happening to you at this very moment is reality. The rest of it is an illusion. It's all in our mind. It's all created in thoughts. It's a dream. It's like we make it up. And that's where all the suffering comes from. So for me, it's like I said, all I care about is the ride. Every step that I take, I want to make sure that step is the best it can be right at that moment. If you do that, you stay in a much more you have much more control of your life, because when things start to go funky, you wake yourself up and say, well, where am I right now? Oh, okay, I'm okay. Everything's all right. I'm here, and there's no lion chasing me. It's like I'm not freaking out. I don't need to freak out. Everything's okay right at the moment. When you do that, then you're constantly staying in a step where you're constantly aware of what is real. And once you do that, life changes, because then your goals are nice. You set them up there to do it, but you don't really care. What you care about is getting to wherever that road's going to lead you with the least amount of suffering and fear and anxiety and tension and all of those things. So if you get to that, that's, there's nothing more important than learning that lesson from my point of view. That's why I always bring it up, because I'm hoping that I can get some people to go, very interesting. 2 minutes ago, that's an illusion now. 2 minutes from now is an illusion, right? This is all that's real. So the only step that matters is this one. Am I having a good time right now? I'm having a great time talking to you. So life is good, right? There you go.
I wanted to add to that, or solidify that I was having a call with this life coach kind of person that I'm talking to every week. And she said like the exact same thing, is that like I had been ruminating about how I'm sure that there's family members of mine that are ashamed of me, that I've recently come out of the closet, as an LGBTQ supporter, and I'm shuffling off these thoughts and feelings that were so damaging, and I'm discovering a better faith. And she was like saying the exact same thing as you, like, what's fact? How do you know that they're disappointed in you? Like, and that's so important, just living in the moment and not just living in the past or anywhere else, but just doing what you can do.
Yes, everything you're talking about there, what that is for you. Remember, the goal is remember, what do we do? We get up every day because we want to feel good about what we're doing. We want to be excited about what we're doing. We want to do all that stuff, right? So that's the only thing that matters. So I'm saying the ride is what it is. All this extraneous stuff that we create in our head to put labels and thinking about what other people are thinking and stuff, that's my problem, not anybody else's problem, because I'm the one creating that insanity in my own head because I'm making it up, right? Because even if they did, does it really even matter? Right? In reality, it doesn't really matter. That's really their thing. Your thing is to basically get to the point where you're just enjoying the ride and you love everything you're doing. You're thankful for when there's down, because that's where you lift yourself up. Remember, the moment you start to learn the upside of down, I call it, there's an upside even in the worst things that can happen to you. If you look deep enough, there's a seat of grace in everything, period. And so I constantly, when I get pounded, I'm like, okay, thank you. There's some lesson in here that I'm going to learn from this. It's going to be very valuable for me. And so then you're turning everything into you just don't take it as seriously. I mean, you realize that your issues are really ones that are made up in your head. Now, obviously, unless you're getting chased by a lion or something is happening, you're doing it, most of the time you're not suffering. So an example, and here's a great exercise that really helped me dramatically, is as often as you can throughout the day, every time you can think of it, whenever you can, ask yourself this question. Stop. Where am I? Put your attention. I'm sitting in my office, in my room. I'm talking to you. Okay, here I am. Okay. Am I feeling any anxiety, tension, or fear? If I'm feeling any of that and I'm sitting here in this chair with my cup of coffee and I'm talking, I know that I'm suffering because I'm identifying with a thought, not with reality. So the more you can do that, each time you do that, that kind of wakes you up, right? It kind of wakes you up to where you actually start watching yourself as opposed to let the thinking run you, right? You start to watch your thoughts. And then you start to realize, well, am I the thinker or am I the watcher? And then you wonder, is there two of me? That's the first one. You're going, whoa, who's watching? Right? So you start going through that process. But when you flip that narrative and you start becoming more watchful over your thoughts, how you feel, what's going on. And every time you ask that question, you're waking up a tiny bit because you've come to the point where you can take enough control to stand there and ask that question. Now, when I tried to do that, I remember I heard this exercise and I went to go do it. The first day I said, I'm going to do it all day long. Next thing I know, I was laying in bed that night and I went, oh, I forgot. I couldn't even ask myself once. I didn't even ask myself once because I was so lost in thought. Mind was controlling every aspect, my email, my thing, I wasn't awake enough to ask myself that question. So I put little sticky notes around my house that just said, wake up. I put them in my drawers. When I go to get a cup, there's a sticky pad that says, wake up. And then I would ask myself. So I put reminders all over the house so that I would do that on a daily basis all the time. And then after a while, you start to become more aware, which is the key. It's awareness. But the puzzle is this. You want to become more aware. Awareness is about waking up by being more. But here's the puzzle. How do I know I'm aware that I'm aware? How do I know I'm aware that I'm aware? That's the puzzle you have to figure out, because you can tell your mind will say, hey, I'm aware, but you're as asleep can possibly be.
Well, let's take a break from this heavy, amazing stuff.
Go wherever you want.
I noticed all those shiny things behind you. What are they?
Those are some gold and platinum records that I'd gotten through the years with, let me see, these are Pink Floyd and I got a Pink Floyd and Toto up there. So those are some records that I played on, and I got gold records and platinum records for those. So I'm very thankful. Very nice to be on those records.
Pretty neat memory there.
Oh yeah.
So what's a special Toto memory of yours?
Oh, I think first of all, one of my favorite bands. I grew up with the guys that started Toto, Jeff Poraro and David Paich when we were kids. We had a kid band. I was the worst guy in the band. I played second trumpet. It was like a horn band, like a Chicago Blood, Sweat, and Tears band. And I wasn't even really going to be a musician. I was more studying to be an architect. And at the time, I was a draftsman at a company called Audiodyne, drawing exploded views. And those are the days when we didn't have computers. Everything was done with a pencil, and you had to learn how to make really nice, beautiful pencil lines and be real accurate. But I was doing that, and I got in the band because I studied. I was playing trumpet for my dad was a musician, and so I kind of kept me going through the years, even though I wasn't that crazed about it, but I did it kind of for him at the time. And so luckily I ended up finally after years. I always tell this story too. It's so funny because I was drafting in this with the company, and then with this band was so good, we were winning all the battle of the bands. And I noticed that when we go to our gigs, there were a lot of girls in the front row. So as a young man, it changed my whole thing. I said, I think I'm going to be a musician. So I changed my whole model and decided. So I got out of that, and I used my drafting skills to become a music copyist so that I could be in the business. And while I was trying to teach myself, because I started studying dramatically like crazy. And but Toto, I think one of the most things is because Jeff Poraro is one of the greatest drummers of all time, and he took off when we were kids and became this incredible musician, studio, records, tours, took off. And so back in my mind, man, I want to get there one day, right? And Jeff Poraro, one of the things he has is really good time. I mean, his time and his feel is just like, it's crazy cool, right? It's really where the rubber meets the road with great drummers. It's their feel and their time. And so he's legendary. And finally I got called to go play with them. They called me up after I'd done a few tours and things like that. And so I got the call. So I was so scared because these are my heroes, right? These are my buddies from kid days. And finally, I've gotten to a point where they called me to come after studying and practicing. And I remember the first thing that happened, I studied like when I got the call, man, I was 10 hours, I was learning the music. I was making sure I really was going to go, because I knew the day I walked in, I better be right on. Because first of all, those guys, as far as being musicians, are the musicians. They're some of the best ever, right? They're just incredible players. And so I knew I was going to be stepping into the game with some heavyweights there. So I'm all prepped. I'm all ready. I got all my charts. I get there. I get to the rehearsal. I'm getting ready. I think we're going to go start the first tune. And Jeff Poraro reaches over and he hands me a cowbell. And that was the first thing I had to do, was play cowbell. So he was basically seeing if my time was good. So I played the cowbell. Luckily, I eat, drink, sleep metronomes, and had one of the first Lynn drum machines. So I was a fanatic about time. So he was very happy, and that was how my thing. So
have you ever seen the Will Ferrell More Cowbell sketch on Saturday Night Live?
No, I have. I don't remember. But yeah, it was more cowbell. I remember him walking around, cowbell, more cowbell.
Just like,
that's the thing. Yeah.
I think that whole thing about living in the moment is a completely different, completely more understandable concept to a musician, because there's just something so special that happens when musicians are jamming and they're just feeling the music. So I listened to, what's the song called? Comfortably Numb. And somebody in the comments section was like, wait a minute, nobody told me that my face was going to get melted off after I watched this. Like,
oh, that's funny. Yeah. You're right about that, about musicians, because, I remember when I was growing up playing in playing clubs, when I was in college and playing a lot of club gigs and things, that I used to tape myself every night, right? Just to critique. So I had my little cassette machine and my Sony Walkman Pro, and I'd take it to every gig and flip it on every night. And then in my car driving back, I'd throw it into the car and I'd listen to myself to see if I was flat, sharp, the notes I played, how did I sound, right? And critique myself. And then I remember over about maybe a 7 to 10 year period of time of doing this, I remember there was like a handful of times, like 5 or 6 times out of all of that stuff, I listened to myself play back and I could not believe it was me. right? I mean, I played stuff that I never played before. I had no idea where it came from. It just was incredible. And so that always made me like, wow, why was that so good that, and what was it that happened? Well, later on, as I started getting more into taking this inward journey, like we were talking about, and started heavy meditation and all of that, and studying all the great, the great teachings, the Quran, the Bible, Buddhism. I mean, I studied them all, like, because I wanted to understand that all the different, in which they all point to the exact same thing, right? This space of, and it's all goes to this thing of no mind, where there's no thought, right? And so I realized what happens when I was playing is I would get into a space when those times when I was really rocking and really playing, I wasn't thinking. Thought dropped. So, because that's through meditation, that's the whole goal. Every meditation, its goal, it doesn't matter, is to get to a point where you stop thought and then you actually see reality. Reality shifts at that point, and everything becomes alive and it's real. It's a very interesting thing. So for a musician, when we play, a lot of us, we get into that zone, and hopefully we get to that. And so for me, when I play, that's what my whole thing is I've actually now, through my meditative practices through the years, I finally realized and know what it means to not think, what it feels like, because that's the only way you can really tell. Because you can say, am I thinking? Well, no, I'm thinking because I'm asking myself, am I thinking? Right? It's a mixed up thing. So, one of the things that I can do now, which I'm so thankful for, is I can actually stop thought. I can stop thinking. And when I play, it allows me to, what I say, get closer to the source or God or whatever you want to call this universal life force, however you want to deal with it, whatever works for you. That's what happens. So I really now, when I go to play, it's all about dropping that space and just sort of surfing on top of everything and getting to that zone. And you're right, musicians, many of us have lucky enough to have tasted that, and it helps us taste it, because once you taste it, you never want to go back.
Mm. I know that feeling of, am I thinking? Oh, yes, I am thinking. I'm aware of it. As an actor, I was a theater actor for 12 years with a traveling Christian theater company.
Okay.
And so that feeling of, wow, I acted really good there. I had tears. Like, no, you push those thoughts back and you try to just look
Yep.
out as the character. And like, it's just acting is so complicated.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Same stuff, right? That's the goal, the whole thing.
Yeah. Because the music is such a journey.
Yep.
It happens to you. It's like, in with acting, when you hear someone's line, even though you've heard it a million times in rehearsal, you hear it for the first time on stage. Your character didn't know that previously. And I miss performing.
Get out there. Come on, girl. You're performing right now. You're doing
it. It's true. Because when you're having a conversation that's going to be public, you are yourself, but you are an elevated kind of version of yourself. Like you're
right.
a more turned on, more.
That's it. It's show business, right?
But I mean, I don't really, even though I was an actor, I was a missionary actor. Like, I don't know a competition world. I don't know a lot of the world, full stop, because I was raised very in a little bubble in Utah. And then at age 19, I went to Covenant Players. At 21, I went to Europe. I was always within a small bubble of the scope of the world. So these conversations Eileen's organizing is like opening up this whole world I never thought I'd have anything to do with.
Right. Get out there, girl.
Yeah, I will take the opportunity. Why not?
Yep.
You have worked with some very fascinating people, like, and very wide range of people. The two names that I wrote down, it's like how different could these guys be from each other? You've worked with Howie Mandel and Monty Python.
Oh yeah. Yep. Howie Mandel. We did Toonland, which is probably one of my most treasured projects that really I'm so proud of. Was with Howie Mandel, we did a series called the first title was called Toonland, and it was an educational title for kids 5 to 7 years old, I think was the range, 4 to 7 kind of range. And it starred Little Howie, which was this character, but it was the world's first interactive cartoon, educational cartoon. So that is something I'm very proud of, because it was back in the day, early days of, Windows machines and technology. One of the real first multimedia kind of blockbuster titles that was ran on Windows, because everything was running in DOS back in the day. So it was very excited. So that was with Howie Mandel. That was fun. And then I did 1, 2, 3, 4 titles, I think, with 4 titles with Monty Python, their game titles. Complete Waste of Time was one, and then The Meaning of Life, and the Holy Grail, and so we did all those titles. And so I got to work with the Pythons for many years, and actually launched Python Line with them. And so that was fun. So I worked with both those guys. Incredible incredible people, and just what a wonderful thing to be able to taste a little bit of what those guys are all about.
Yeah. So do you have any interesting stories about Howie and the Pythons?
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Not to put you on the spot or anything.
Yeah, I think it's one thing was funny is, when you're working in multimedia, it's different, because when you're trying to tell a story in a non-linear environment, because in multimedia or in technology, you've got all these branches, like you can click on something, go this direction, so that tells a story different than going in this direction. And so you need to have a lot of alternate lines and things, because if the person goes this direction, then the story is told one way with dialogue and this. So I remember when we were doing Complete Waste of Time, and I was working really close with Eric Idle, because he was doing a lot of the voiceover and stuff, that I would be constantly calling him up and going, because I realized we missed the line. We need another line, right? Because it was so new and, interactive storytelling. And so I was always calling him up going, Eric, can you just give me one more thing? Just one more. I need you one more, because he was getting kind of like, okay, get this done, would you? I mean, I'm tired. Hey, Eric, could you just do this one more time? So I ended up calling him one time, and I said, hey, Eric, I said, I know I hate to bug you one more time, but I need one more line. So he ended up he wrote me a song called Just One More Line, where he kind of just went crazy on me for like, all he ever do is ask me for one more line. I went through this whole thing. So I was actually pretty funny. And I wish I could find that, because it would be just great to go see it, because I thought it would be great for my answering phone.
I think, I had a thought and I lost it. Ugh. Oh, yes, I found my thought.
Good. Where'd it go?
It somewhere, but it came back. You should just, like, if you still have his number, you should just call him and just like, can I just have one more line?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I'll call up Eric. I got one more. Yeah, that's funny. That'd be a funny bit.
It's been really, really great talking to you.
Back at you. It was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me on your show, and good luck to you. And don't let those mental noises make you crazy. And just realize anything that anybody else is thinking, that's their issue. It's how you deal with it, right? That's all that matters. You just got to go. Remember, it's all about forgiveness and surrender, right? You just have to live in a state of forgiveness. That's all I do, because forgive for they know not what they do is just basically saying people are so lost in their thoughts, and so they don't know what they're doing. So we just got to forgive everybody, because everybody's doing the best they can. So don't let all those other people's thoughts, don't let all the other nonsense make you crazy. Just smile, live in a state of forgiveness, and surrender to what is, and you've won the lottery. You have won. So anyway, thank you very, very much, and appreciate it. And hello to everybody out there in video land here with this fine young lady's show. And I'm very thankful to be on it today with you. So thank you.
So how I end my episodes is I give hugs.
All right. Whoa, thank you. I felt it from here. Thank you.
Thank you, and bye.
Bye.